Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's Popeye from Down the Rabbit Hole, PopeyeRadio.com, and FederalJack.com. I'm going to shoot a quick video here, putting out an update on the ongoing situation over at the Fukushima Daiichi nuke plant in Japan. This is an aerial satellite image of the plant here. These are the leaking reactors, listen to me, the melting down reactors here. This, by the way, just want to show you this is the tank farm. Yeah, these are all tanks filled with radioactive water from the cooling ponds that are cooling off the fuel rods. So yeah, this is all radioactive water, and eventually the radioactivity is going to break down these containers, and it's going to leak. Oh, and they already have problems with these leaking. And then, of course, there's the whole thing of earthquakes and another tsunami coming in and hitting this, and then all that radioactive water would be mixed with all that water that's getting pushed in, and then it would come back and flow back into the sea. And oh yeah, don't worry about that because this place would never have a tsunami or a huge earthquake. Oh wait, oops. So anyway, this is Fukushima. So I want to show you what's going on, and I figured showing a satellite image would be the best. So here are the problem reactors, right? Underneath these reactors, and I'm going to do this in a very simple and easy to understand manner so everybody can get this. So everybody across the board can understand the dangers of this, not just the super scientific minded or people that are into this. So these reactors here, right? These are the ones that are melting down. Now, 3 of them, the cores, are melting down into the earth. They've already gone through the floors of the reactors. So they're not in these buildings. They're gone. They're down below. Now, if you can picture, it's not just melted like a solid ball. It's like molten, the corium is like molten lava, but it's radioactive lava. Well, think of it like radioactive molten lava. And as it melts down, you know, the topography of the ground up underneath, you have, well, not, I guess not, that wouldn't be topography, I guess, but you know what I mean. The makeup of the ground underneath. There are fault lines. The ground isn't just like straight layers of like, you know, dirt or limestone or clay or everything is kind of, I mean, there are layers, but it's kind of, some of it's slanted, some of it's not as uniform and as perfect and even as you would think. Japan's a very seismic area. It's very seismically active. So it's not surprising that some of this stuff is moved around, pushed up. But that creates fissures, that creates all these little cracks. There's fault. There's a huge fault underneath there that they found afterwards. Not after the event. They found it, I think it was like 2010 or 2009 they knew about it. But they had done underground drilling to check, you know, the geology and see what was going on underneath the ground around the plant. And they found this old ancient fault line that was down below. Now, just because it's an old inactive fault doesn't mean it couldn't get reactivated during a huge earthquake, kind of like the one they had back in 2011. Side issue. Well, not really a side issue, but that part about the thing coming back alive is a side issue. So, up underneath here in these buildings, right, under the reactors, you have the corium, which is now melted into the ground. Picture it going out like tendrils in all directions. So, you have, from underneath here, you have like, you know, like little tendrils of corium, but you can't see it. It's not in the ground here. It's not in the asphalt. It could be 30, 40, 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, 400 feet. We don't know how far down it is right now. And if TEPCO knows, they're not saying. So I believe the official answer is they don't know, which is a sobering thought too, if that's actually the truth. But the melted cores are now below here. So let's zoom out, okay? Here's the whole plant. Let's zoom out. Here's the Pacific. Now, if we look at the satellite imagery with the topographical features here, you see all this stuff here? This is mountains. Anybody knows that if you live in or around mountains, if you live in a valley, that it usually takes about 24 hours for rain that's come down in the mountains to make its way through the streams and everything down into the valleys. It takes about 24 hours. Usually rivers, where I grew up, the rivers would crest within like 12 hours of a rainfall, but I would say give it like 24 for full crest and then start to subside down after the rain has stopped. Now, I would say within 48 to 72 hours, all of the water that's up here has come down, made its way through the ground because of just the shape of the ground, and it's passing because this is the way it works, and there's an old river that they diverted to make this plant. So you have all this groundwater that travels up underneath here and just naturally goes out into the sea, makes its way back. Well, yeah, but there's a problem because in between said mountains and the Pacific lies this highly radioactive mess known as the Fukushima Daiichi shit show. And now, all of this water, and this isn't now, this has been going on since it melted down, so for 4 years. You have all this groundwater and rainwater and stuff coming down from the mountains and then washing through this highly radioactive area and going out into the Pacific. So when they tell you, oh, we're only dumping a certain amount of radioactive water into the Pacific and it's getting diluted because it's not much, well, yeah, because if they're dumping, like, the water, which is what they have been dumping, the water from the cooling ponds, which is this stuff that's in the tanks, well, yeah, maybe dumping these tanks into the water, it's radioactive, but maybe this isn't super bad, right? I mean, you'd think it's bad. Any levels of radiation are horrible, but you would think, well, this isn't bad. But if you zoom out and realize that all the groundwater underneath this whole area is traveling through this, and this is all radioactive in here, all of this. And they don't really have a clue how far out the radioactive level, I mean, you can test with Geiger counters, but I mean underground, they really don't have a clue how far contaminated this is. And the further down these go, we're going to run into other problems, or at least Japan, well, it sucks for the entire planet, but Japan's going to run into a major problem if it hits the Tokyo aquifer. Yeah. What happens if it hits the Tokyo aquifer and all it has to do is get down into these fissures and these cracks and it'll ooze? That stuff's not going to harden. It's not like lava rock where it'll harden after a while. It's creating its own heat. So it's keeping itself in this constant state of like molten meltdown. Lovely. That's awesome. Because science. Because we really need to build these reactors? No, we don't. This is the stupidest thing on the planet. Like Einstein said, it's a really retarded way to boil water. So, now that we have an understanding of the ongoing problem of the groundwater and stuff, I want to bring up another problem. What happens when it's not a little rainstorm? You know, Japan gets hit by typhoons, which are hurricanes. Over there they call them typhoons. Here we call them hurricanes. Same thing. So, what happens when a hurricane comes in here and produces a ton of rain, right? Oh, I don't know if that would happen, Popeye. I can't foresee that. Oh, God, what? Thousands evacuated and hundreds of homes destroyed after a tropical storm causes a river to burst its banks in Japan, flushing radiation water from Fukushima into the sea. What? Yeah. This is going on right now. Here, let's go watch the video really quick. Let's play this. Let's watch the video.
Floods have hit Japan, sending tons of radiation-contaminated water from the Fukushima nuclear plant into the ocean. That's been confirmed by the facility's operator, Tokyo Electric Power. Authorities have declared the situation an emergency. Entire neighbourhoods were submerged in water after rivers burst their banks. Around 90,000 people have been moved to safety. Professor Christopher Busby, who's the scientific secretary of the European Committee on Radiation Risks, says that there could be serious radiation-related consequences if the situation is not handled properly.
There's an enormous amount of radioactivity underneath the plant. The reactors are holed, and a lot of the fuel is actually in the ground, and that's mixing with the groundwater. Well, normally what they do is they pump that away because the groundwater becomes heavily contaminated, and they pump it into those big tanks. But of course, if the groundwater rises as a result of this rain, then that stuff will come out of the surface of the ground. And the second problem, of course, is it may affect the integrity of the structures, the actual building structures of the 4 reactors, and then of course you're into really serious nuclear nightmare territory then. It surprises me that they haven't got enough pumps to deal with this situation. It's not a situation that's impossible to predict. I mean, all along the line we're being told that TEPCO couldn't possibly have predicted this and couldn't possibly have predicted that. Well, the answer is they should have.
And I agree. They should have been able to detect that it was going to be a problem. And they should have known. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. So here's another news article about it. Emergency typhoon in Japan. 100,000 displaced. Tons of radioactive water spilled into sea. Notice how it's right in the headline. Tons of radioactive water spilled into sea. I'll repeat that. Tons of radioactive water. The radioactive groundwater that they never tell you about and they're not talking about ever. That they kind of just, oh, that's not an issue. They don't talk about it. Because if you don't know about it, then it must not be an issue, right? If you're not hearing about it from the news or from officials, well, that groundwater is all, now you have it rising up because of the, it's being inundated, the whole area is being inundated with rain. So that water that's already radioactive is now being driven up to the surface, plus all the other radioactivity that's in the ground is now irradiating all that fresh water that's coming through. So now you just have this huge radioactive water manufacturing plant, basically, sitting right on the Pacific Ocean. That's what Fukushima is. See the Daily Mail over in the UK? Thousands evacuated and hundreds of homes destroyed after a tropical storm causes a river to burst its banks in Japan, flushing radiation water from Fukushima into the sea. They say it right in the headline of the article. Now let's go to American news. Let's see what the American news media has to say about this, shall we? Let's see. Let's go to CNN. Let's see. As it refreshes itself. Let's see. Oh, Bush. Oh, Trump. Oh, Donald Trump. The Trump distraction. The whole 2016 selection distraction, please. I'm not going to go off on a side rant on that. That's a whole nother show coming up. So, I'm sure CNN, because this is super important news, I'm sure CNN would be able to report on it and do a special and have reporters there. And wow, J.K. Rowling says you've been pronouncing Voldemort wrong. So that apparently is more important. And the BS 2016 selection of the new tyrant coming into power here in America with a K is more important than this ongoing radiation leak into the Pacific, because radiation's not harmful. The EPA would tell us if it was, right? So let's go to Fox. Close out CNN there. Let's go to Fox. Not going anywhere. Assad gets Russian reinforcements. NYPD chief apologizes. All this other really non-important BS. Not one word. Not a word. Not a single word in here, ladies and gentlemen, about what's going on over in Japan. Not a word in the mainstream media, right on their websites. Not a frigging word. None. This is weather.com. This is the Weather Channel. So I wanted to see what they had to say. Title, Levee branch in Japan destroys homes, forces dramatic rescue, leaves 9 missing. Woman dies in landslide. And it goes through all this, right? Let's see what their breakdown is on the latest of what's happening. I'm sure they have the breaking news about all the radioactive water being flushed into the thing, right? A 63-year-old woman is confirmed dead? No. At least 9 people are missing? No. A young man is reportedly unconscious in critical condition? No. A levee break among the river? Forced dramatic helicopter rescue? No. More than 110 people are still awaiting rescue from flooded homes? No. At least 11 dwellings have been destroyed. No Fukushima mentioned there. The Japanese government says at least 22 people have been injured in landslides. Nope. 26 inches of rain. More than 200,000 people were advised to evacuate. But where's the news about the nuke disaster, Weather Channel? I mean, aren't you concerned about people's safety? I mean, this is the footage that RT was just showing while talking about Fukushima and the radiation and everything. So, let's see. So we go down here through the article, and oh yeah, I really don't see anything. It's all about the rescues, about the levees breaking. It's about the storm. Oh my God, and the landslides turn deadly. Oh my God. And then it gets down to the bottom. Storm impacts wide swath of Japan. The tropical storm affected many other areas of Japan prior to and during its landfall. Here's a wrap of its impacts Tuesday and Wednesday. So they go through the different prefectures, and you'll notice Fukushima is mentioned, the Fukushima prefecture. Now note how they put this little line about what's going on into the bottom of the story, and they barely mention it. You get one line out of it. All these paragraphs about the dramatic rescues and the emotion, and oh my God. One line. Fukushima prefecture, according to the, I can't even pronounce that. I know that's the Shimbun. That's one of the national newspapers over there. Heavy rainfall Wednesday caused contaminated water from the crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuke plant to run off into the Pacific Ocean for several hours early Wednesday. The newspaper said it was the 7th such incident this year. This year. I mean, it's probably lying about the number. That's probably lowballing it. But even if they're being honest when they say 7 such incidents this year alone. Hello? Hello? Yes, you in the back with your hand raised. Yes, 7 incidents in 1 year so far, and it's only September, of radioactive water leaking into the Pacific. That's almost one time every month. But no, don't worry about it, because the EPA would tell you. Anyway, so it gets one line mentioned. The newspaper said it was the 7th such incident this year, Fukushima Daiichi, which suffered a catastrophic meltdown after the 2011 earthquake and tsunami. So, you get one line of mention about Fukushima and all that radioactive water being pushed. Tons of radioactive water being bubbling up from the ground and being washed into the Pacific Ocean. The solution to radioactive pollution is not dilution, ladies and gentlemen. That's not how it works. I know that you'd like to think that, and that would make you feel better, because sometimes that does work with things. That's not how it works with radiation. It just doesn't work that way. That's the reality of things. So here's the Weather Channel. They give a little 1 bullet point line mention of it. And that's it. Yet, you have the Japanese media, and here, and you have RT, you saw the video, and you have the Daily Mail, all mentioning, even the Daily Mail. I mean, the Daily Mail usually lies its ass off, and here they're saying radiation, radioactivity. The American media, silent. Here, let's go to Drudge. We'll see if Drudge has anything on it. Let's see. Anything at all. I doubt it. But, I mean, come on. Drudge is awesome, right? They would tell the truth, right? I'm sure they have all this information about Japan and the radioactive water pouring in. And nope. A lot of it seems to be focused on the 2016 selection, Hillary Clinton's emails, the Pope, a golfer dying after being stung by bees. Don't really see any mention of Fukushima in here. Yeah, I guess it's not important. So even the so-called alternative to the mainstream, which we all know Drudge is mainstream, but no mention of it. Even in the alt media itself, no one's really mentioning this. And I think that's largely in part because people don't know to be paying attention, because they just don't realize what's going on over at Fukushima. This is a huge problem. If you want to understand the geology of Fukushima, this is a good article. It was sent to me by Radchick, a.k.a. Christina Consolo. She sent me this, and it explains the entire geology of what I was talking about a little bit earlier, how, because it's a very seismically active area, the ground is very, I guess the only way to describe it is like it looks kind of jagged underneath. It's not as uniform as you would think. There's a lot of different things going on underneath there, geologic-wise. And this article really describes what's going on up underneath Japan and how it's laid out. And what they found and what they know and how long they've known. Here's the plant. Yeah, can you imagine the cores just keep melting down and it hits this, and that's just great. So yeah, anyway, read this article if you get a chance. I'll drop a link to it in the description on the video here. Go check it out. It'll help you understand. You'll have to probably translate it from Japanese, but that's fine. Translate it, and then once you read the entire article and you understand it a little better, you'll have a better understanding as to what's going on underneath Fukushima. It's not just what's above level. It's not just what, oh, they've capped it. There's no more meltdown. No. It's ongoing, and now this stuff is melted down into the ground, and all the water and groundwater that passes by it is being irradiated and then going out into the Pacific. So this is an ongoing problem. A huge ongoing problem. A huge one. I couldn't stress that enough, ladies and gentlemen. Huge. So, I urge you to follow more information, gather more intel about Fukushima, spread the word, tell your loved ones, tell them what's going on. If you want to follow me over on Facebook, you can find me over at Popeye DTRH. That's Popeye DTRH. You can find me over on Twitter at two places. I have the Federal Jack Twitter account, which is Federal Jack at Federal Jack over on Twitter, right? Then you go over here, and the one for Popeye, that's like my Twitter account I use for myself and the radio show. And I pretty much retweet everything on the Federal Jack account too, but follow this one as well, at DTRH_Popeye, at DTRH_Popeye. And then, of course, follow Christina Consolo on Twitter, at RadchickForecast, right here, at RadchickForecast. And you can also find her on YouTube. Just go on YouTube and type in Radchick, all one word, channel, Radchick channel, and it should pop up. Subscribe to her channel. She is a wealth of information, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, I tell you, the solutions to our problems are an inside job. The solution, well, we don't have the permanent solutions to this nuke problem. I'm not going to lie to you. But the solution starts with us paying attention and acknowledging that there's a problem and that something has to be done. Just remember that, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very real and dangerous problem in our world right now, and this, Fukushima, is what we need to be focusing on. We need to be more worried about that than these stupid wars they're trying to get us in, or division amongst us here in this country. We need to focus on this. Fukushima is the great unifier because it affects all of us. Doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It does not matter. Does not matter what sexual preference you are, what political preference you have. Does not matter. So we need to stop hating on one another and come together as mankind and fight this monster. Because Pandora's box has been opened, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to do something about it. Be the solution. Let's start to be the solution to the problem. Let's be the change. As I always tell you, the solutions to our problems are an inside job, and it starts with us. I know this is some heavy stuff, but we'll figure it out, and we'll get through this if we can get everybody to start focusing on it. Stay frosty, ladies and gentlemen, and watch your six. I love all of you. I believe in all of you, and we'll get through this. I'll talk to you soon.